Michigan replacing JJ McCarthy. Now, obviously, they have many players that they're trying to replace, but obviously, the quarterback is the number one that you look for most often. I'm sure we'll get into Donovan Edwards coming back, which is fantastic for Michigan. Going into the season, I think he is just a great athlete. Blake Corum has tremendous vision. I said that on Twitter the other day. Some of the best vision I've ever seen in a running back. Boy, am I glad he's gone. He killed my Buckeyes. But and they're bringing some good defensive guys in, or some good defensive guys back. It's not just, they're losing their whole defense. They have defensive tackles who are coming back. Keon Sabb is a great player that I love to watch. Will Johnson, his dude's going to be a first-round pick. If he went to the draft today, he'd probably be a first-round pick. So, they have a lot of pieces coming back, but I think the one they're thinking the most about is JJ McCarthy. Who's going to come in for that? John, what are some of your thoughts on replacing JJ McCarthy?
Yeah. So obviously, I was just on talking about a lot of these topics, and it's tough because obviously JJ McCarthy might have been one of the best quarterbacks Michigan has seen since the 40s. You go back to somebody like a Tom Harmon. Somebody like that. But what's that?
Did you get to watch him play?
Not personally. Well, no, I went in my time machine. I've been building a time machine and, just zap back there. But no, JJ really, he's tough to replace, but you have to do it. A big part of this is what happens with Harbaugh too. I mean, that's the elephant in the room. What happens with Harbaugh? Does he stay or go? But regardless, you have on the QB room, you've got a couple. You've got Alex Orji, who we saw in limited play this season as a runner, primarily running. He was assigned RPOs, and he tended to pick the R, and he didn't really pick the P ever in the run pass option. But if he can throw, which I think in the spring game once or twice we saw him throw. Allegedly he has a good arm. We just haven't really seen it.
I imagine it's very strong at the very least.
If he can work with Kirk Campbell and get that arm up, then Alex Orji is going to be tough to beat. But you do have, of course, Jaden Denigal, who's been contending. You have Jaden Davis, who, yes, he's a freshman, but he did enroll. He came in early and was with the team for the Rose Bowl and for the national championship and was practicing with the team. So that always helps when you're up against some other players and you still have spring ball and fall camp to go. He might actually be in the running. But I would give it at this point to Alex Orji, unless they bring in, I thought they might go for Taulia, but he got rejected by the NCAA for his 7th year of eligibility. They said, 7 years, just too much, even though we've let all these other people have 8 years. That's too much for you, Taulia. Go to the NFL and go do that. So now he's now preparing for his NFL, where he's going to go in the draft. So for me, it's Alex Orji as the front runner right now. But we'll see spring camp. We'll see the spring game. And they'll get to compete against each other in the spring game. And then we'll really get to understand where they're all at.
Yeah, I think Alex Orji, obviously he's a fantastic athlete. If you've seen pictures of him, he's huge. The guy's just huge. And so, like I said, I imagine he has to have a strong arm. He looks like he's been in the weight room every single day. So
that's Ben Herbert, man. Ben Herbert, strength and conditioning coach.
Yes,
he's the Mickey Marotti of Michigan, and brought the mental toughness up, the physical toughness up, and Alex Orji is just one example of that.
Oh yeah, and people don't realize how much strength and conditioning coaches help with culture and everything else like that as well. That really was kind of the turning point for Michigan, and you could tell in the toughness and everything that they display on the field as well. Justin, what are your thoughts on replacing JJ McCarthy?
Yeah, the exciting option is Jaden Davis because he's supposed to be their future quarterback. But looking at it just from, and not a lot of experience, when I looked at Alex Orji's numbers, there's not a lot. I think he was, like he said, he ran the ball. And I think it's attempted one pass in 2 years. I saw that somewhere. So I think with Alex Orji, it's like it's almost like unless they're able to kind of somewhat land a transfer portal quarterback of some kind, I think you have to go unless Jaden Davis completely just rocks, blows their shoes off in the spring game. And in the spring, he's going to have to come on strong and just absolutely blow Alex Orji out of the water, I think, to win that job. So I think it's his to lose.
Yeah, I think so as well. And, I think about it too. Like, obviously I'm not saying I have no idea about Alex Orji's passing or anything like that. But when I think back to Michigan's history, I think of a guy like Denard Robinson, who, obviously made a living just being a fantastic athlete. Obviously, he had his arm struggles, which limited him as a passer, which, that stunk for him. But, he was obviously still a great quarterback in college and had a professional career as well. However, I think back to that and I think about it. If Sharon Moore, I'm not making that prediction. I actually think Jim Harbaugh comes back. I said that in the last episode. But if, just Sharon Moore is the guy, I think he's perfectly fine with having a running quarterback like Alex Orji, who does more of the R instead of the P, like you said in the run pass option, John. Because at the end of the day, that's what Sharon Moore wants to do. Sharon Moore wants to pound the rock. He wants to run the ball. And, until somebody stops him, I don't see why he wouldn't want to just keep doing that. So put the guy out there who's a fantastic athlete, and gives you one more blocker when he does run the ball, because you don't have the quarterback sitting back there handing it off. So a couple other names that when I was researching it and kind of thinking through it, Jaden DeLora from Arizona, he got, I think it was either benched this year or last year. I think he played in 2022. So, he's in the transfer portal from Arizona, actually a pretty good quarterback. Noah Fafita was just really good himself.
I think Jeff Sims might still be in the portal.
Sure.
If you want him.
Hey, there you go.
Obviously I'm a Buckeye fan. I don't know if I'd wish that on Michigan though.
I think that's one thing you'd want to wish on them.
I know, but
I will say this. He might be so we had Alan Bowman transfer in, and he was like the third or fourth string. I mean, Jeff Sims could do that and be a body in the QB room.
Yeah, just better hope
it's not impossible.
It's not.
Yeah.
And then another name I found, which I haven't heard anything about this guy. I tried to do some research on him before the show, but I couldn't find much. Jordan McLeod from James Madison. The guy's been around quite a few places. He was at USF. He was at James Madison. I think he was at one other spot before James Madison, but he had a really good passer rating in 2022. He was up there with kind of the Curtis Rourke, CJ Stroud, who's the other one, Caleb Williams as well. His QBR was really, really high. So,
wow.
That would be another option that Michigan might be looking at. We'll see. I have no idea. But we always have the spring portal left as well. So, but I think that would be the one that if Michigan did decide to go after a Jordan McLeod, that would be the guy that I think could really excite Michigan fans and be kind of an underrated name that people aren't sure of. Have you thought of any other transfer quarterback guys, John?
Well, I was looking at Taulia, and then obviously we got the news today about that. I like Jordan McLeod. I'm looking at his stats now. Anybody who has 3,657 passing yards and 35 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, they're okay by me. And if you're going to bring a guy like that in to compete against Alex Orji, compete against Jaden Davis, compete against Jaden Denegal, that'll be one hell of a quarterback competition, and may the best man win. So I think that's the type of person you bring in to make it like a 3 or 4 way competition for starter.
Yeah, I agree.
How funny would it be if Jalen Milroe, ended up in the portal and ended up at Michigan?
That would be fun.
That would be something, because they scouted him in game. I think
Sharon Moore playing the ball.
He can and he can throw a football too. You see that Auburn, that pass against Auburn to win the game? That was incredible.
Yep.
John, I do want to get your take on a few other positions. Obviously,
Yeah,
like we talked about Blake Corum,
yeah,
Donovan Edwards. I think we'll take
yeah.
that over. But we have some other guys leaving. Some offensive linemen. Zach Zinter kind of leads the pack there, but some wide receivers and Robin Wilson, Cornelius Johnson as well. I don't know if you feel the same as me. I'm less concerned about the defense just because we saw a lot of underclassmen play. But I'm more concerned about kind of the offensive line and the wide receivers. It sounds so weird saying I'm concerned about Michigan's offensive line. I'm not concerned that they won't be good. I'm kind of concerned who they're going to bring in. Do you have any thoughts on wide receivers and offensive linemen coming in for next year?
Yeah. So with wide receiver talent, you do have Tyler Morris, who will probably be in one of the three starting positions. You've got people like Samaj Morgan. You've got Carmelo English. Peyton O'Leary might actually slide to a wide receiver position. I believe he's tight end at the moment, but they might slide him over to wide receiver. However, I think that is definitely a position where you look at the transfer portal, you look at, you might see if you can get somebody from Alabama, because clearly everybody's getting people from Alabama these days. Maybe you get somebody from a Georgia or somebody because they have so much talent that not everybody can play over there. Well, guess what? Here, wide receiver, it's kind of like when you're a good one, you're probably going to start because our wide receiver talent is the one area that I think, people ask me, well, what does Ohio State have over Michigan? And I said, well, one thing that Ohio State still has is wide receiver coaching and wide receiver recruiting. And that's one area that we could really improve. So I would love to see them bring in a wide receiver in the transfer portal. As far as O-line, people actually don't realize that we have an O-line that is pretty solid. So we've got Greg Crippen, who's going to probably be center unless they bring someone in. You've got Giovanni El Hadi, who was a redshirt sophomore this year. So he'll be probably in a starting position. And then from there, you've got a couple people who, they might either keep. I guarantee you that's one area that they will use the transfer portal, because every single year they've gotten a couple of transfers to compete with the existing talent, and sometimes they win and sometimes they lose. But that's what Sharon Moore does. He tries to grow the players that they have, but then to compete against them, he brings in a Ladarius Henderson, or he brings in a Drake Nugent to compete against the existing players. And I think that's a great way of doing it, because then it's like whoever's the best is going to play. So I'm not too concerned. O-line is going to change a lot, obviously. Like pretty much everyone is going to look different. I don't think anybody's coming back from the starting lineup at all. So it's going to look very different on the O-line. But that's the nature of the beast. You stack it up, win a title. Then you're going to need to replace some people. But I think Michigan is in decent shape. Obviously, I feel way better about the defense than I do about the offense, because there's a lot of unknowns about the offense. But I think we're going to be okay at those positions. And the fact is, this is a coaching staff. Sharon Moore, regardless of what happens with Harbaugh, Sharon Moore knows how to scout. These coaches know how to scout people from Coastal Carolina, who then make huge plays against Alabama in the game. So if there's one thing I have very little doubt on, is this coaching staff knows how to scout talent that may not be a 5-star. They don't use 247 as a shopping list. They actually dig deep and they look at the real talent at every level of football and who's dominating their position group. And so I think at least from there, I don't have too much doubt in Michigan's ability to do that.
That's all I was going to say was, even if you do lose everybody, if there's a coach that you want for the offensive line that can replace some guys, it's Sherrone Moore. He's proven to be one of the best offensive line coaches in the nation. And who knows, he could turn out to be one of the best head coaches in the nation too, if something happens. We'll see. Listen to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.